In the vast expanse of the galaxy, two dominant empires held sway over thousands of worlds. The Zalkar Dominion, a bureaucratic juggernaut with the military strength to match its iron-fisted rule, and the Kothar hegemony, a technologically superior civilization that excelled in research and development. These empires, though different in philosophy, shared one unspoken truth: humanity was insignificant. Barely noticed on the galactic stage, humans had carved out a meager existence on the outer edges of space. A planet of dreamers and explorers, Earth was seen as a curiosity at best and a backwater at worst. For centuries, the Zalkar and Kothar had maintained a tense, fragile peace. Their rivalry simmered beneath the surface, building toward what everyone in the galaxy knew was inevitable: war. A conflict was on the horizon, one that would shake the foundations of the galaxy, but few thought Earth would play any part in it. The Zalkar, with their bureaucratic precision, saw humanity as little more than a footnote in their plans for dominance. The Kothar, with their superior technology, dismissed humans entirely, deeming them too primitive to pose a real threat. The galactic order had long since been established, and in that order, humanity was irrelevant. On the galactic sidelines, Earth existed in relative obscurity. Technologically behind the major powers but admired for their ingenuity, humans focused on surviving the challenges of their own world. While the great alien empires expanded across the galaxy, humanity's reach remained limited. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in creativity and adaptability, yet this wasn't enough to earn the respect of the galactic elites. Earth had established peaceful trade relations with smaller alien factions, engaging in diplomacy where they could, but remained cautious to avoid entanglements with the larger powers. Humanity's neutrality was an unspoken strategy, a way to ensure their survival in a galaxy that had little room for weakness. Humanity's efforts to stay out of galactic conflicts were largely successful. Their position on the fringes of space afforded them the luxury of isolation, allowing them to focus on internal progress rather than interstellar politics. But despite their best efforts, they couldn't escape the reality that the galaxy's larger powers were inching closer to open war. The tension between the Zalkar and Kothar was escalating, and humanity's quiet existence was about to be shattered. It began without warning. The Zalkar Dominion, eager to gain an advantage in their looming war with the Kothar, saw an opportunity in Earth. In the chaos of their brewing conflict, the Zalkar made a calculated decision. Earth, they believed, was ripe for conquest, a minor target that could provide them with resources and a morale boost without requiring much effort. A quick, brutal strike, and the humans would be subjugated. The attack came swiftly. Zalkar fleets descended on Earth's major cities, unleashing destruction that humanity had never seen before. Buildings crumbled under the weight of orbital bombardments, and entire populations were wiped out in moments. Panic spread across the globe as Earth's leaders scrambled to respond. Despite their ingenuity, humanity's defenses were woefully underprepared for an assault of this magnitude. The Zalkar's technology was superior in every way. Their ships were larger, faster, and more heavily armed. Earth's defense forces were outgunned and outmatched. For the first time in history, humanity was facing an enemy from beyond the stars, one that viewed them as little more than an inconvenience to be swept aside. The devastation was staggering. Major cities across the globe were reduced to rubble in hours. Tens of millions of lives were lost in the initial assault, and Earth's leaders were in disarray. Communications broke down, and military commanders struggled to coordinate a response. The Zalkar had expected the fall of Earth to be swift, and by all accounts, it should have been. Humanity, they believed, was too weak to resist. In the eyes of the Zalkar, the attack was a minor conquest, one that would barely register in the grand scheme of their galactic ambitions. But in their arrogance, they had underestimated humanity. While the initial shock of the attack had thrown Earth into chaos, the human spirit was not so easily broken. In the wake of devastation, something remarkable began to unfold on Earth. The attack that had been meant to break the planet instead unified it in a way that no one, especially not the Zalkar, had anticipated. All the divisions and conflicts that had defined humanity before the attack faded in the face of this shared threat. From every corner of the globe, leaders, scientists, and military commanders came together in an unprecedented alliance, forming the United Earth Command. It was clear that if Earth was to survive, it would have to pool every resource, every ounce of knowledge, and every bit of its resolve. The United Earth Command, or UC, wasn't just a military coalition, it was the embodiment of humanity's ability to adapt under pressure. Scientists who had been working on isolated projects now collaborated to find ways to counter the Zalkar's overwhelming technological advantage. Engineers, once focused on civilian infrastructure, were tasked with repurposing the planet's industries to manufacture weapons and defense systems. Strategists from every military force on the planet sat down to design a defense plan that took into account humanity's unique strengths. Earth had been caught off guard, but it wouldn't remain that way for long. Humanity had always been resilient, and history was filled with examples of people rising to the occasion when their backs were against the wall. This attack on Earth, as horrific as it was, brought out that same determination. The UC leadership recognized that brute force wouldn't win this war. Humanity couldn't match the Zalkar's fleet in sheer numbers or firepower. But they could outthink them. They could adapt, innovate, and use tactics that the rigid and overconfident Zalkar would never see coming. And so, the UC unveiled secret projects that had been quietly in development for years. Some were designed with the possibility of alien contact in mind, while others were repurposed in the face of this immediate threat. One such project involved the creation of small, nimble attack ships that could maneuver in ways the Zalkar's massive capital ships couldn't. These ships, manned by some of the most skilled pilots humanity had to offer, became the spearhead of Earth's counteroffensive. The UC knew that going head-to-head with the Zalkar in conventional battle was a death sentence, so they opted for a strategy that played to their strengths: guerrilla warfare. Instead of engaging the enemy in large-scale battles, Earth's forces began to strike in small, coordinated raids. These attacks, often carried out in asteroid fields or on the fringes of the Zalkar's supply lines, caught the aliens completely off guard. In battle after battle, humanity's creativity and adaptability shone through. The Zalkar had prepared for a straightforward campaign of planetary conquest, but they hadn't prepared for an enemy that could turn the terrain to its advantage. Human forces used asteroid fields as cover, launching surprise attacks and then disappearing before the Zalkar could mount an effective response. They deployed stealth technology that made it nearly impossible for the alien ships to detect their approach until it was too late. In one particularly stunning victory, a small human fleet managed to ambush and destroy a Zalkar supply convoy, cutting off critical resources to the front lines. Each victory, no matter how small, sent a powerful message: humanity wasn't going to go down easily. The Zalkar, who had expected to crush Earth within weeks, found themselves locked in a prolonged conflict where their superior technology was rendered ineffective by the humans' unconventional tactics. Human pilots became legends in their own right, pulling off daring maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible, and ground forces demonstrated an ability to outlast and outfight much larger alien armies by relying on hit-and-run strategies and ambushes. The Zalkar's overconfidence became their greatest weakness. As the battles raged on, word of humanity's surprising resilience began to spread across the galaxy. Alien news networks, initially dismissive of Earth's chances, started broadcasting footage of human ships defeating Zalkar fleets many times their size. Reports of human victories circulated, and other species, long oppressed or overlooked by the galactic powers, began to take notice. The galaxy, once convinced of humanity's insignificance, was now watching in awe as the small, supposedly primitive species defied the odds time and time again. At first, the Zalkar dismissed these victories as flukes, the product of luck rather than skill. But as the human raids continued, with more Zalkar fleets being disrupted and destroyed, the reality of humanity's strategic prowess became impossible to ignore. The humans weren't just surviving, they were turning the tide of the war. What had been expected to be a quick and decisive conquest was now evolving into a drawn-out and costly conflict for the Zalkar. Every engagement drained their resources and morale, and every defeat chipped away at the aura of invincibility that had surrounded their empire for so long. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Zalkar, a power feared and respected for millennia, was now being brought to its knees by a species that they had once considered beneath their notice. And as humanity's victories mounted, a new sense of hope spread among the galaxy's oppressed races. If humanity, with all its perceived weaknesses, could stand against the might of the Zalkar, perhaps they, too, could rise up against their own oppressors. Earth had become more than just a battleground, it had become a symbol of defiance, a testament to the power of determination and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. As the war continued to rage, humanity realized that brute strength wasn't the answer. They couldn't match the Zalkar in numbers or sheer firepower, so they adapted their strategies, focusing on the areas where they had an edge: creativity, adaptability, and ingenuity. One of the first major shifts came through the use of advanced electronic warfare. While the Zalkar relied heavily on their complex, interlinked communication networks and powerful AI systems to coordinate their fleets, humanity exploited their dependence on technology. By developing sophisticated cyberattacks, they began to disrupt alien communications, throwing entire fleets into disarray. Electronic warfare units, staffed by some of Earth's most brilliant engineers and hackers, infiltrated alien systems and crippled them from the inside. Entire fleets of Zalkar ships were left blind, their sensors scrambled, and their communications severed. In the chaos, Earth's forces launched devastating counterattacks. By sabotaging enemy navigation systems, they redirected alien ships into asteroid fields or gravitational traps. Even more impressively, humans developed advanced drones capable of mimicking the signatures of larger vessels, confusing Zalkar commanders into chasing ghost fleets while real human forces attacked elsewhere. The introduction of AMPs, designed to specifically target the Zalkar's electronics, became another game-changer. In several battles, human forces deployed these weapons at key moments, shutting down entire squadrons of alien ships in an instant. This ability to paralyze the enemy and leave them vulnerable to conventional weapons or guerrilla strikes quickly became one of humanity's most potent tools. The Zalkar, who prided themselves on technological superiority, were left stunned by how easily their systems could be disrupted. Every battle saw new innovations from Earth's military scientists as they rapidly developed battlefield solutions, adapting to alien technology in real time. The war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about turning the tide. One of the key moments came in the Battle of New Sol, where a massive Zalkar fleet attempted to destroy a crucial human outpost near a cluster of gravitational anomalies. Rather than facing the enemy head-on, human commanders devised a plan to lure the Zalkar into the heart of the anomalies, where their larger ships struggled to maintain stability. By using smaller, more agile ships, humanity was able to outmaneuver the Zalkar and take advantage of the gravitational distortions to trap them. The ambush was a stunning success, with the majority of the alien fleet destroyed or disabled before they could mount an effective defense. That victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, but it wasn't the only one. The siege of Luna was another turning point, where human soldiers, vastly outnumbered, held off a determined Zalkar assault on Earth's largest lunar base. For weeks, the defenders fought a brutal ground campaign, using the natural tunnels and caverns of the moon to set up ambushes and trap alien forces. In the end, they bought enough time to evacuate critical installations and equipment, ensuring that Earth's war effort would continue. The bravery and tenacity of the human soldiers during the siege became a symbol of Earth's resolve, and it showed the galaxy that humanity wouldn't break under pressure. Each victory brought newfound confidence to Earth's forces. No longer were they the isolated, insignificant players they had once been. Now they were a force to be reckoned with. For the Zalkar, these defeats were more than just military losses. They were psychological blows. Every time they lost a battle to humanity's underdog tactics, their aura of invincibility cracked a little more. For the first time, the galaxy began to see the Zalkar not as an unstoppable juggernaut, but as a force that could be beaten. And humanity was the one proving it. However, as the war dragged on, humanity knew that it needed to take even more drastic measures to force the Zalkar to the negotiating table. This is when they began to unveil their most devastating weapons, technologies that had been kept hidden, even from their own people, for fear of what they might unleash. The graviton bomb was one such weapon. It had the terrifying ability to collapse spacetime in a controlled area, creating a singularity that would annihilate anything caught within its radius. When the first graviton bomb was deployed, it wiped out an entire Zalkar fleet in one horrific instant, the ships simply folding into nothingness. This weapon alone would have been enough to give pause to any galactic power, but humanity had more. The chronopulse was another game-changer, capable of disrupting the temporal flow around enemy ships. When fired, it left Zalkar vessels frozen in time, suspended in a stasis where they were helpless to defend themselves or retaliate. The first time the chronopulse was used, an entire Zalkar armada was left motionless, allowing human forces to systematically dismantle them without facing any resistance. These weapons weren't deployed recklessly, but their very existence forced the galaxy to take notice. No longer could anyone dismiss Earth as a backwater planet struggling for survival. Humanity had developed technologies that could not only turn the tide of battles but also potentially change the course of the war itself. With these devastating tools at their disposal, Earth's leaders carefully calculated their use, deploying them only when absolutely necessary. But the message was clear: humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for dominance, and they had the means to achieve it. As the war continued, the galaxy's attention was firmly fixed on Earth. No one had expected humanity to rise so quickly or to hit back with such force. The balance of power was shifting, and for the first time in millennia, the Zalkar were no longer the sole masters of the galaxy's future. Earth had shown that, when pushed to the brink, they were capable of creating weapons and strategies that even the most advanced civilizations couldn't match. And in doing so, they forced the entire galaxy to recognize their strength. The underdogs had become the champions. The galaxy could no longer ignore Earth. What had once been dismissed as a minor conflict between a primitive species and a dominant empire had turned into something far more significant. Alien leaders, who had long considered humanity irrelevant, found themselves scrambling to reassess their positions. The Zalkar Dominion, who had once been so certain of their victory, was now approaching Earth with caution, their confidence shattered. They initiated peace negotiations, a prospect that had seemed laughable when the war began. But now, with their fleets decimated and their reputation in tatters, they had no choice. The Kothar hegemony, watching from the sidelines, expressed a reluctant admiration for humanity's tactics. They, too, had seen the humans as little more than a distraction, but now they understood the reality. The Kothar, always pragmatic, chose to avoid direct conflict with Earth. They recognized that while their technology might still be superior in some ways, humanity's unpredictability and ingenuity made them a dangerous foe. Rather than risk a costly war, the Kothar sought diplomatic channels to engage with Earth, quietly signaling their respect for what the humans had accomplished. Other galactic powers, those who had watched in silence as the war unfolded, began to see the writing on the wall. Humanity was not just another species that had managed to survive, they had emerged as a force to be reckoned with. Suddenly, everyone wanted to be on the right side of history. Alien leaders who had once dismissed Earth were now vying for alliances, hoping to avoid becoming the next target of humanity's rise. Some offered trade deals, others military partnerships, all in the hope of securing a relationship with this newfound power. But beyond the immediate diplomatic maneuvers, the galaxy was undergoing a deeper shift. The smaller alien species, those who had long been oppressed or marginalized by the dominant empires, saw in humanity a symbol of hope. Here was a species that had been underestimated and cast aside, only to rise and challenge the very powers that sought to crush them. Earth's victories sparked movements across the galaxy. Species that had once accepted their subjugation began to rally, inspired by humanity's resilience. They saw in Earth a partner, a beacon of resistance that they could rally behind. The Zalkar Dominion, once the unchallenged power of the galaxy, found their influence waning. Their losses to humanity had damaged their standing beyond repair. Alien species that had once feared them began to question their authority. The Dominion, once seen as invincible, now appeared vulnerable. Their allies distanced themselves, and their rivals moved to capitalize on their weakened state. Meanwhile, The Kothar hegemony, always cautious, reevaluated their stance on Earth. They could no longer afford to see humanity as an afterthought. Earth was now a central player in the complex web of galactic politics, and the Kothar knew they had to adapt to this new reality. For Earth, the transformation was profound. No longer were they the outsiders, scraping by on the fringes of the galaxy. They were now at the heart of the galactic order. Their representatives were sought after in political councils, their influence growing with each passing day. Humanity had shifted from a position of survival to one of leadership. But this newfound power came with its own set of challenges. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see how Earth would wield its influence. Yet, the victories had come at a great cost. Millions of lives had been lost in the defense of Earth. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble, and the scars of the conflict were etched across the planet. For all their triumphs, humanity had paid a heavy price. The war had changed Earth forever. The people who had emerged from the ashes of the conflict were different, hardened, united, but also weary from the toll it had taken. The sense of unity that had been forged in battle became one of humanity's greatest strengths. The divisions that had once plagued the planet were now overshadowed by a shared sense of purpose, a collective will to shape their future in the galaxy. But with this unity came questions. The galaxy, now looking at Earth with a mixture of respect and fear, wondered what humanity's next move would be. Would Earth, having tasted power, become another empire? Would they seek to expand their influence, conquering those who had once looked down on them? Or would they maintain their hard-fought independence, choosing diplomacy over domination? The future of humanity was uncertain, and the galaxy waited anxiously to see what path they would choose. In the end, Earth's journey from insignificance to galactic power was a testament to the qualities that had always defined humanity. Their creativity, their adaptability, and their refusal to surrender had shocked the galactic order. They had turned the tide of a war that had been designed to crush them, and in doing so, they had changed the course of history. The galaxy had shuddered when humanity entered the war, and now, it was left to wonder what humanity would do next.